And it's great to have all of you here today. And again, we are on chapter 28, section 3, the agreement to join. And that's on page 596 in my book. But I will go ahead and share my screen so I can read the first section. Why is this up here? Let's get rid of this. Okay. Oh, sorry about that. Back to what we need to look at. There we go. Okay. What waits in perfect certainty beyond salvation is not our concern, for you have barely started to allow your first uncertain steps to be directed up the ladder separation led you down. The miracle alone is your concern at present. Here is where we must begin. And having started, will the way be made serene and simple in the rising up to waking and the ending of the dream? When you accept a miracle, you do not add your dream of fear to one that is already being dreamed. Without support, the dream will fade away without effects, for it is your support that strengthens it. No mind is sick until another mind agrees that they are separate. And thus it is their joint decision to be sick. If you withhold agreement and accept the part you play in making sickness real, the other mind cannot project its guilt without your aid in letting it perceive itself as separate and apart from you. Thus is the body not perceived as sick by both your minds from separate points of view. Uniting with a brother's mind prevents the cause of sickness and perceived effects. Healing is the effect of minds that join, as sickness comes from minds that separate. The miracle does nothing just because the minds are joined and cannot separate. Yet in the dreaming has this been reversed, and separate minds are seen as bodies, which are separated and which cannot join. Do not allow your brother to be sick, for if he is, have you abandoned him to his own dream by sharing it with him? He has not seen the cause of sickness where it is, and you have overlooked the gap between you where the sickness has been bred. Thus are you joined in sickness, to preserve the little gap unhealed, where sickness is kept carefully protected, cherished, and upheld by firm belief, lest God should come to bridge the little gap that leads to him. Fight not his coming with illusions, for it is his coming that you want above all things that seem to glisten in the dream. The end of dreaming is the end of fear, and love was never in the world of dreams. The gap is little, yet it holds the seeds of pestilence and every form of ill, because it is a wish to keep apart and not to join. And thus it seems to give a cause to sickness, which is not its cause. The purpose of the gap is all the cause that sickness has, for it was made to keep you separated in a body which you see as if it were the cause of pain. The cause of pain is separation, not the body, which is only its effect. Yet separation is but empty space, enclosing nothing, doing nothing, and as unsubstantial as the empty place between the ripples that a ship has made in passing by, and covered just as fast as water rushes in to close the gap, and as the waves in joining cover it. Where is the gap between the waves when they have joined and covered up the space which seemed to keep them separate for a little while? Where are the grounds for sickness when the minds have joined to close the little gap between them, where the seeds of sickness seem to grow? God builds the bridge, but only in the space left clean and vacant by the miracle. The seeds of sickness and the shame of guilt he cannot bridge, for he cannot destroy the alien will that he created not. Let its effects be gone, and clutch them not with eager hands to keep them for yourself. The miracle will brush them all aside, and thus make room for him who wills to come and bridge his son's returning to himself. Count then the silver miracles and golden dreams of happiness as all the treasures you would keep within the storehouse of the world. The door is open, not to thieves, but to your starving brothers who mistook for gold the shining of a pebble, and who stored a heap of snow that shone like silver. They have nothing left behind the open door. What is the world except a little gap, perceived to tear eternity apart and break it into days and months and years? And what are you who live within the world except a picture of the Son of God in broken pieces, each concealed within a separate and uncertain bit of clay? Be not afraid, my child, but let your world be gently lit by miracles. And where the little gap was seen to stand between you and your brother, join him there. And so sickness will now be seen without a cause. The dream of healing in forgiveness lies and gently shows you that you never sinned. The miracle would leave no proof of guilt to bring you witness to what never was. And in your storehouse, it will make a place of welcome for your father and yourself. The door is open, that all those may come who would no longer starve and would enjoy the feast of plenty set before them there. And they will meet with your invited guests. The miracle has asked to come to you. This is a feast unlike, indeed, to those the dreaming of the world has shown. For here, the more that anyone receives, the more is left for all the rest to share. The guests have brought unlimited supply with them, and no one is deprived or can deprive. Here is a feast the Father lays before his Son and shares it equally with him. And in their sharing, there can be no gap in which abundance falters and grows thin. Here can the lean years enter not, for time waits not upon this feast, which has no end. For love has set its table in the space that seemed to keep your guests apart from you. And just like a bow, that wrapped up our early discussion. I love how that happens.
100% of the time.
Yep. Yep. And it's just a choice, right? It's just a choice to see the Christ in your brother and not the fear that the ego is trying to spawn. And there's lots of opportunity to practice. If at first you don't succeed, you'll have a lot more opportunities.
Yeah.
To try again.
Yep. Yep.
Anybody have any comments?
Well, it's stunning to hear that all you have to do is just, let it ride, and eventually it'll undo itself. I mean, that first paragraph said it all.
Yeah.
Without support, the dream will fade away without effects.
Because whatever you share, you strengthen.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, no mind is sick until another mind agrees that they are separate.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So anytime you have those triggering moments and someone says something and you're ready to disagree with them, maybe you could just pause for a minute and say, I choose to see the Christ in you instead. I choose to see love. I choose to see our common yearning for love instead of the fear that divides us. Right? Because everybody just wants love. Everybody wants peace. Everybody wants safety. And that's the miracle, right? In that instant, to see love instead of this is the miracle. And that's all you have to do. Just give it that instant, and God will build the bridge. You don't even have to build the bridge. You just need to clear the spot.
It's true.
Clear the spot.
Mhm.
Neutrality. All right, shall we continue?
Greater joy.
The greater joining. Accepting the at-one-ment for yourself means not to give support to someone's dream of sickness and of death. It means that you share not his wish to separate and let him turn illusions on himself, nor do you wish that they be turned instead on you. Thus have they no effects, and you are free of dreams of pain because you let him be. Unless you help him, you will suffer pain with him because that is your wish, and you become a figure in his dream of pain as he in yours. So do you and your brother both become illusions and without identity. You could be anyone or anything, depending on whose evil dream you share. You can be sure of just one thing, that you are evil, for you share in the dreams of fear. There is a way of finding certainty right here and now. Refuse to be a part of fearful dreams, whatever form they take, for you will lose identity in them. You find yourself by not accepting them as causing you and giving you effects. You stand apart from them, but not apart from him who dreams them. Thus you separate the dreamer from the dream and join in one, but let the other go. The dream is but illusion in the mind, and with the mind you would unite, but never with the dream. It is the dream you fear and not the mind. You see them as the same because you think that you are but a dream. And what is real and what is but illusion in yourself, you do not know and cannot tell apart. Like you, your brother thinks he is a dream. Share not in his illusion of himself, for your identity depends on his reality. Think rather of him as a mind in which illusions still persist, but as a mind which brother is to you. He is not brother made by what he dreams, nor is his body hero of the dream, your brother. It is his reality that is your brother, as is yours to him. Your mind and his are joined in brotherhood, his body and his dreams, but seem to make a little gap where yours have joined with his. And yet, between your minds, there is no gap. To join his dreams is thus to meet him not, because his dreams would separate from you. Therefore, release him merely by your claim on brotherhood and not on dreams of fear. Let him acknowledge who he is by not supporting his illusions by your faith. For if you do, you will have faith in yours. With faith in yours, he will not be released, and you are kept in bondage to his dreams. And dreams of fear will haunt the little gap, inhabited but by illusions, which you have supported in your brother's mind. Be certain, if you do your part, he will do his, for he will join you where you stand. Call not to him to meet you in the gap between you, or you must believe that it is your reality as well as his. You cannot do his part, but this you do when you become a passive figure in his dreams, instead of dreamer of your own. Identity in dreams is meaningless because the dreamer and the dream are one. Who shares a dream must be the dream he shares, because by sharing is a cause produced. You share confusion and you are confused. For in the gap, no stable self exists. What is the same seems different, because what is the same appears to be unlike. His dreams are yours because you let them be. But if you took your own away, would he be free of them and of his own as well? Your dreams are witnesses to his, and his attests the truth of yours. Yet if you see there is no truth in yours, his dreams will go, and he will understand what made the dream. The Holy Spirit is in both your minds, and he is one because there is no gap that separates his oneness from itself. The gap between your bodies matters not, for what is joined in him is always one. No one is sick if someone else accepts his union with him. His desire to be sick and separated mind cannot remain without a witness or a cause. And both are gone if someone wills to be united with him. He has dreams that he was separated from his brother, who, by sharing not his dream, has left the space between them vacant. And the Father comes to join his Son, the Holy Spirit joined. The Holy Spirit's function is to take the broken picture of the Son of God and put the pieces into place again. This holy picture, healed entirely, does he hold out to every separate piece that thinks it is a picture in itself. To each, he offers his identity, which the whole picture represents, instead of just a little broken bit that he insisted was himself. And when he sees this picture, he will recognize himself. If you share not your brother's evil dream, this is the picture that the miracle will place within the little gap, left clean of all the seeds of sickness and of sin. And here, the Father will receive his Son, because his Son was gracious to himself. I thank you, Father, knowing you will come to close each little gap that lies between the broken pieces of your holy Son. Your holiness, complete and perfect, lies in every one of them. And they are joined because what is in one is in them all. How holy is the smallest grain of sand when it is recognized as being part of the completed picture of God's Son. The forms the broken pieces seem to take mean nothing, for the whole is in each one, and every aspect of the Son of God is just the same as every other part. Join not your brother's dreams, but join with him. And where you join his Son, the Father is. Who seeks for substitutes when he perceives he has lost nothing? Who would want to have the benefits of sickness when he has received the simple happiness of health? What God has given cannot be a loss, and what is not of him has no effects. What then would you perceive within the gap? The seeds of sickness come from the belief that there is joy in separation, and its giving up would be a sacrifice. But miracles are the result when you do not insist on seeing the gap, what is not there. Your willingness to let illusions go is all the healer of God's Son requires. He will place the miracle of healing where the seeds of sickness were, and there will be no loss, but only gain. Once again, it says the same thing in hundreds of words.
Mm-hmm. Like the instructions, lather, rinse, repeat, lather, rinse, repeat.
Right. Right. But sometimes the mind catches it in a different way, right? Whereas before, maybe it wouldn't have heard that.
Yep. It's true.
Yeah.
You hear it 100 times, and the 101st time, for some reason, it strikes you differently.
Right. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I never heard that before. Or maybe it's just not in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
amazing.
until your frequency is there, you can't receive it because you're not of that wavelength.
Right. And what did you say in the beginning, Mary? I'm sorry. I think I cut you off.
No, I just said if your frequency is not a match and you're not of the same wavelength, you really can't receive it, or you receive it distorted, and therefore it doesn't really sink in. If we think of everything as energy, it kind of becomes easier to understand why we can hear something 100 times and not quite get it, because there's static.
Mm,
That's a good point.
yeah.
Excellent point. Anybody have anything else they want to share with regard to what we just read, or anything that's coming up, or situations, or?
You too?
Yeah. I was just saying, that analogy to the static, I said, well, there's some days worse than others, but I think I have a lot of static.
And I think that happens too when we're at a stressful time, or the holidays. There's a lot going on. We don't take that time for self-care. We don't put the time in for self-love because we're distracted by, oh my gosh, I have to do this thing, and I have to get these gifts, and I have to send them out, and I have to do this other thing, and there's a wedding, and there's so much, right? Because life pulls you in different directions, which is why it's so important to have a practice,
Mhm.
a daily practice of just self-love, and just remembering I love you, and we forget that self-love component that's so strong, because without that self-love, we can't help but align with fear, right? Everything is love or fear. And the more we practice aligning with love, the stronger that union becomes, and the less likely we are to be pulled into fear, because we're so strong in that place of alignment with love. So, shall we continue? Very appropriate to the upcoming wedding, which is, let's see, the alternate to dreams of fear. I was getting ahead of myself. The next one's more appropriate. What is a sense of sickness but a sense of limitation, of a splitting off and separating from, a gap that is perceived between you and your brother, and what is now seen as health? And so the good is seen to be outside, the evil in. And thus is sickness separating off the self from good and keeping evil in. God is the alternate to dreams of fear. Who shares in them can never share in him. But who withdraws his mind from sharing them is sharing him. There is no other choice. Except you share it, nothing can exist. And you exist because God shared his will with you, that his creation might create. It is the sharing of the evil dreams of hate and malice, bitterness and death, of sin and suffering and pain and loss that makes them real. Unshared, they are perceived as meaningless. The fear is gone from them because you did not give them your support. Where fear has gone, there love must come, because there are but these alternatives. Where one appears, the other disappears. And which you share becomes the only one you have. You have the one that you accept because it is the only one you wish to have. You share no evil dreams if you forgive the dreamer and perceive that he is not the dream he made. And so he cannot be a part of yours, from which you both are free. Forgiveness separates the dreamer from the evil dream and thus releases him. Remember, if you share an evil dream, you will believe you are the dream you share. And fearing it, You will not want to know your own identity because you think that it is fearful. And you will deny yourself and walk upon an alien ground, which your creator did not make, and where you seem to be a something you are not. You will make war upon yourself, which seems to be your enemy, and will attack your brother as part of what you hate. There is no compromise. You are yourself or an illusion. What can be between illusions and the truth? A middle ground where you can be a thing that is not you, must be a dream, and cannot be the truth. You have conceived a little gap between illusions and the truth to be the place where all your safety lies and where yourself is safely hidden by what you have made. Here is a world established that is sick, and this, the world the body's eyes perceive. Here are the sounds it hears, the voices that its ears were made to hear. Yet sights and sounds the body can perceive are meaningless. It cannot see nor hear. It does not know what seeing is, what listening is for. It is as little able to perceive as it can judge or understand or know. Its eyes are blind. Its ears are deaf. It cannot think, and so it cannot have effects. What is there God created to be sick? And what that he created not can be. Let not your eyes behold a dream, your ears bear witness to illusions. They were made to look upon a world that is not there, to hear the voices that can make no sound. Yet are there other sounds and other sights that can be seen and heard and understood? For eyes and ears are senses without sense, and what they see and hear, they but report. It is not that they hear and see, but you who put together every jagged piece, each senseless scrap and shred of evidence, and make a witness to the world you want. Let not the body's ears and eyes perceive these countless fragments seen within the gap that you imagine, and let them persuade their maker his imaginings are real. Creation proves reality because it shares the function all creation shares. It is not made of little bits of glass, a piece of wood, a thread or two, perhaps, all put together to attest its truth. Reality does not depend on this. There is no gap that separates the truth from dreams and from illusions. Truth has left no room for them in any place or time, for it fills every place and every time and makes them wholly indivisible. You who believe there is a little gap between you and your brother, do not see it is here. You are prisoners in a world perceived to be existing here. The world you see does not exist because the place where you perceive it is not real. The gap is carefully concealed in fog, and misty pictures rise to cover it with vague, uncertain forms and changing shapes, forever unsubstantial and unsure. Yet in the gap is nothing. And there are no awesome secrets and no darkened tombs where terror rises from the bones of death. Look at the little gap, and you behold the innocence and emptiness of sin that you will see within yourself when you have lost the fear of recognizing love.
That's nice.
That's nice.
That was nice.
Yes, see, there is a place where we can go that's real
Every place.
if we choose. It's all up to what we choose. Fear or love cannot coexist. If you are in fear, you have cast love out. If you are aligned with love, there can be no fear. Always a choice. 60,000 times a day. 60,000 thoughts a day to choose love or fear.
That's all?
That's it. So many opportunities to choose again. If at first you don't succeed. Any thoughts or comments? Anything coming up for anyone here?
I'm just thinking to myself that in choosing the fear, that's what brings all of your perceived problems and unhappiness. And so it's astounding to me that given those 60,000 opportunities, how I know personally, I catch myself choosing the fear. So that ego needs to be fed, and but there's nothing in it for you except for your troubles. So why on earth do we do that? Why do people tend to do that if there's nothing good in it for them by choosing the fear instead of the love?
I think a lot of it is early conditioning and habit. If that's what you're used to doing, if that's what you've done all your life,
The default setting.
it's part of what you are accustomed to doing. And it actually, as we talked about last week, it becomes literally ingrained in your mind as a familiar path. So you will walk the familiar path because the unfamiliar path feels scary and uncertain.
The road
But
less.
once you start creating those new neural pathways, it will begin to feel more comfortable. But it's practice, right? And vigilance. Even Course in Miracles says, you must be vigilant of mind wandering. And you must be ready to look at those thoughts and just say, stop. So in that moment when you say stop, you can make a choice. But if you don't say stop first, your mind will follow that path, right?
Yeah.
Mind training.
Mind training, that's right.
Discipline.
And in following the motivational principles, we do things because we think they're bringing us happiness, but we've settled for temporary happiness. So when we get even with someone, when we commiserate with other people, when we think we're not deserving of joy to last in our lives, and we say, up, the other shoe's going to drop. All of these things we do because we think that, and they do temporarily bring us a sense of sort of satisfaction. I got that time, or I beat that person, or I, whatever it is, or I made a friend because I commiserated, or, whatever it is, we think that that's what we can achieve, if you will, because that's what our mindset is, instead of realizing that we can have that all the time, that we are loved enough and that we are love in return and are worthy of that kind of life. And then once we grasp that, then we can create those neural pathways. And then when we're in that positive state, in that loving state, we're attracting love to us. Whereas when we're not, we're attracting what we say we don't want to us, because that's our state of being. And that's how the world works.
Mm-hmm.
And it will give us more opportunities to choose love or fear.
More than 60,000 a day.
Well, that's an average. It could be more, could be less. It's approximately. Yeah. So good point, Mary. Thank you for bringing it into like an everyday situational perspective. Okay, shall we carry on? Anybody else have anything they want to say about that? All right, now we have the secret vows. Dun, dun, dun. Who punishes the body is insane, For here, the little gap is seen, and yet it is not here. It has not judged itself, nor made itself to be what it is not. It does not seek to make of pain a joy and look for lasting pleasure in the dust. It does not tell you what its purpose is and cannot understand what it is for. It does not victimize because it has no will, no preferences, and no doubts. It does not wonder what it is, and so it has no need to be competitive. It can be victimized, but cannot feel itself as victim. It accepts no role, but does what it is told without attack. It is indeed a senseless point of view to hold responsible for sight a thing that cannot see, and blame it for the sounds you do not like, although it cannot hear. It suffers not the punishment you give because it has no feeling. It behaves in ways you want, but never makes the choice. It is not born and does not die. It can but follow aimlessly the path on which it has been set. And if that path is changed, it walks as easily another way. It takes no sides and judges not the road it travels. It perceives no gap because it does not hate. It can be used for hate, but it cannot be hateful made thereby. The thing you hate and fear and loathe and want, the body does not know. You send it forth to seek for separation and be separate. And then you hate it, not for what it is, but for the uses you have made of it. You shrink from what it sees and what it hears and hate its frailty and littleness, and you despise its acts, but not your own. It sees and acts for you. It hears your voice, and it is frail and little by your wish. It seems to punish you, and thus deserve your hatred for the limitation that it brings to you. Yet you have made of it a symbol for the limitations that you want your mind to have and see and keep. The body represents the gap between the little bit of mind you call your own and all the rest of what is really yours. You hate it, yet you think it is yourself, and that without it, would yourself be lost. This is the secret vow that you have made with every brother who would walk apart. This is the secret oath you take again whenever you perceive yourself attacked. No one can suffer if he does not see himself attacked and losing by attack. Unstated and unheard in consciousness is every pledge to sickness. Yet it is a promise to another to be hurt by him and to attack him in return. Sickness is anger taken out upon the body so that it will suffer pain. It is the obvious effect of what was made in secret, in agreement with another's secret wish to be apart from you, as you would be apart from him. Unless you both agree that is your wish, it can have no effects. Whoever says there is no gap between my mind and yours has kept God's promise, not his tiny oath to be forever faithful unto death. And by his healing is his brother healed. Let this be your agreement with each one, that you be one with him and not apart. And he will keep the promise that you make with him, because it is the one that he has made to God, and God has made to him. God keeps his promises. His Son keeps his. In his creation, did his Father say, "You are beloved of me, and I of you forever. Be you perfect as myself, for you can never be apart from me." His Son remembers not that he replied, "I will," though in that promise he was born. Yet God reminds him of it every time he does not share a promise to be sick, but lets his mind be healed and unified. His secret vows are powerless before the will of God, whose promises he shares. And what he substitutes is not his will, who has made promise of himself to God. I'll have to remember that line. I really like that. That's a good one. There is no gap between my mind and yours. Maybe that's what I'll say from now on. If anybody starts talking about religion and politics down here, I'll just say, there is no gap between my mind and yours. That's so powerful, right?
That'll go.
Oh, Libby, it's okay. Sorry, guys, it's just looking in the front window and there's a tractor going by.
Oh.
Libby,
It's all right. We can't really hear right now. You got us on mute. Yeah, that's so powerful, right? There is no gap between my mind and yours. Perfect response to anything and a good reminder, right? To keep myself aligned with love and not see my brother as a separate body, but see my brother as the mind, the Christ mind. There is no gap between my mind and yours. I like that. I'm going to start using that. Powerful.
I like the way it's particularly said, because I used to always say to myself, what's the difference between what I'm saying and you're saying? But I like this better.
So powerful, right? I love it.
My thing is freezing again.
That's
My
okay. We can
screen.
still hear you. There is no gap between my mind and yours. Yep, that's it.
I struggle with that, because if what's coming out of the mouth, mind that you're connected to, is something that either you don't agree with, or it's like what that person said to you at the holiday gathering, completely unaligned with your thinking.
Right.
I mean, in that moment, how on earth do you see the Christ in somebody else when it's just so far removed from, what's in your head or your heart?
Well, here's the other thing that I think would be fun to say is I could say something like, I realize that this is all an illusion and there is no gap between my mind and yours. And he might just say, this lady's crazy.
Hey.
And that's okay too, right? But at least I get to that place of not creating a separation between my mind and his mind. And I won't be responsible for adding to the sickness of the separation. Right? And it wouldn't be the first time someone thought I was a little bit out of my mind, which is okay too.
There, I'll unmute.
Okay, go ahead, Carl. I didn't hear you.
I never knew that I had one.
Well,
That you had a mind?
mind.
My heart that runs me. I don't really run by my mind.
Uh-huh. Exactly. Did you want to add something, Ernesto?
The whole thing with the mind is that, where is it? Right? Because it could be at any time, it could be anywhere.
That's right. In truth, it's at one with all of my brothers and with God, right? So if I was in my right mind, I would be in alignment with all of my brothers and part of that one mind of God.
And I think it helps when you think about that, centering the self.
Right.
To answer the question that was asked about how do you go from what you're thinking in your heart to your mind?
Mm-hmm.
When you go into your mind, it quiets the heart down.
Right.
It happens.
It's part of that at one-ment, right? Or atonement. I like to read it as at one-ment because it makes more sense to me when I read it that way.
It definitely centers the oneness. Absolutely does.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's one more section left in this chapter. Shall we do it?
Sure.
Time isn't.
All right.
Yeah, we got enough time.
Yeah, we've got 15 minutes. All right. The ark of safety. God asks for nothing, and his son, like him, need ask for nothing, for there is no lack in him. An empty space, a little gap, would be a lack. And it is only there that could want for something he has not. A space where God is not, a gap between the Father and the Son, is not the will of either, who have promised to be one. For God's promise is a promise to himself, and there is no one who could be untrue to what he wills as part of what he is. The promise that there is no gap between himself and what he is cannot be false. What will can come between what must be one, and in whose wholeness there can be no gap? The beautiful relationship you have with all your brothers is a part of you because it is a part of God himself. You are not sick if you deny yourself your wholeness and your health. The source of help, the call to healing, and the call to heal. Your Savior waits for healing, and the world waits with him. Nor are you apart from it, for healing will be one or not at all. Its oneness being where the healing is. What could correct for separation but its opposite? There is no middle ground in any aspect of salvation. You accept it wholly or accept it not. What is unseparated must be joined, and what is joined cannot be separate. Either there is a gap between you and your brother, or you are as one. There is no in between, no other choice, and no allegiance to be split between the two. A split allegiance is but faithlessness to both, and merely sets you spinning round to grasp uncertainly at any straw that seems to hold some promise of relief. Yet, who can build his home upon a straw and count on it as shelter from the wind? The body can be made a home like this because it lacks foundation in the truth. And yet, because it does, it can be seen as not your home, but merely as an aid to help you reach the home where God abides. With this as purpose is the body healed. It is not used to witness to the dream of separation and disease, nor is it idly blamed for what it did not do. It serves to help the healing of God's Son. For this purpose, it cannot be sick. It will not join a purpose not your own, and you have chosen that it not be sick. All miracles are based upon this choice and given you the instant it is made. No forms of sickness are immune because the choice cannot be made in terms of form. The choice of sickness seems to be a form, yet it is one, as is its opposite. And you are sick or well accordingly. But never you alone. This world is but the dream that you can be alone and think without affecting those apart from you. To be alone must mean you are apart. And if you are, you cannot but be sick. This seems to prove that you must be apart. Yet all it means is that you tried to keep a promise to be true to faithlessness. Yet faithlessness is sickness. It is like the house set upon straw. It seems to be quite solid and substantial in itself, yet its stability cannot be judged apart from its foundation. If it rests on straw, there is no need to bar the door and lock the windows and make fast the bolts. The wind will topple it, and rain will come and carry it into oblivion. What is the sense in seeking to be safe, and what was made for danger and for fear? Why burden it with further locks and chains and heavy anchors, when its weakness lies not in itself, but in the frailty of the little gap of nothingness whereon it stands? What can be safe that rests upon a shadow, Would you build your home upon what will collapse beneath a feather's weight? Your home is built upon your brother's health, upon his happiness, his sinlessness, and everything his father promised him. No secret promise you have made instead has shaken the foundation of his home. The winds will blow upon it and the rain will beat against it, but with no effect. The world will wash away, and yet this house will stand forever, for its strength lies not within itself alone. It is an ark of safety, resting on God's promise that his son is safe forever in himself. What gap can interpose itself between the safety of this shelter and its source? From here, the body can be seen as what it is, and neither less nor more in worth than the extent to which it can be used to liberate God's Son unto his home. And with this holy purpose is it made a home of holiness a little while, because it shares your Father's will with you. Okay. And there was a lot of words in there, right, Alicia?
Yes.
Like, what did that just say?
Lots and lots of words. Yes. It's
So
kinda like, it's one of those sections where afterwards I feel like the when you whistle at a puppy and they go,
what?
and they
Right.
they cock their head like, wait, what was that?
Yeah. So it basically says that the body is whatever you feel, whatever thought you have about the body is what you make it. But in truth, it's just an illusion. It's part of the separation, and its only purpose is to be used for a vehicle to bring you back to your true home, which is at one minute. So as has been said many times in A Course in Miracles, its only purpose is communication, right? And if you use it for anything but that, then you're misusing it. Oh, are you trying to say something, Ernesto?
Yeah, what I wanted to say was that's a heavy weighted subject, the body for communication. And I know that it kind of makes sense in some kind of way,
Right.
but the separation keeps coming in.
Right.
I mean, it's a weighty concept for me anyway. It is. I kind of understand what it's saying, but kind of putting it to use to work evades me.
So according to the glossary, the index, which we like to refer to in A Course in Miracles, the body, level 1, the embodiment of the ego, the thought of separation projected by the mind and becoming form, the witness to the seeming reality of separation by being a limitation on love, excluding it from our awareness, includes both our physical bodies as well as our personalities. And then there's a level 2, it is inherently neutral, neither good nor evil. Its purpose is given it by the mind. Symbol of guilt and attack, and the means of teaching and learning forgiveness, whereby the ego's guilt is undone, the instrument of salvation through which the Holy Spirit speaks. So it's just an instrument.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so wrong mind would be it's a symbol of guilt and attack, and the right mind it's the means of teaching and learning forgiveness. And an instrument of salvation through which the Holy Spirit speaks. We try to make it so much more than that.
It's another
Right.
form. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else want to add anything? We have about 5 minutes. Not enough time to start reading again, but enough time to share some things at the end, thoughts or anything.
I got nothing.
Yeah, I keep going back to that subject this morning where I read that headline thinking it was in Ukraine, and then it was actually here. All the thoughts that happen in between all of that, and then trying to think of it that, okay, that's just fear. Send it love, regardless of whether I believe it or not. Just send it anyway, because you know that's what it's supposed to be happening.
Right. Yep. Good point. All right, guys. Well, if there's nothing else, we could close a little early today, unless somebody has something else they want to share. No. All right.
I can't think. My brain,
Well,
I feel like mashed potatoes up there.
that's all right. Is your wedding this weekend?
Pardon
Is it-
me,
Is your wedding this weekend?
it's Friday.
Friday. All
So
right.
we fly out Wednesday, rehearsal Thursday, wedding Friday. And then we have a few days to chill after that, so,
Oh, good. So will you guys be on next week?
no,
No. Okay.
no, because we're going, we're leaving tomorrow. Wait, no, we will still be in Jamaica. We don't come back.
Nice.
We don't come back until Wednesday.
I might go on. In Jamaica.
Look at the look.
You're gonna just pull some Jamaican off the street and say, hey, man, I got something for you.
No. It doesn't mean
Stay away from the spleef.
Yeah,
Well, enjoy your trip. I wish you well.
thank
And
you so much. I'm looking forward to it.
if anybody is available, I'll be here next Monday. as usual.
Fantastic.
All
Bye,
right.
everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. Good conversations as usual. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.